This is working. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rebecca Nieves Huffman, and on my channel you're gonna find out about three things: food, familia, and finds, all with a Puerto Rican lens. You know, with it being fall and the air is getting crisper and families are going out apple picking, which my family did last weekend, it just makes me want to make a homemade apple pie. Now, homemade with a caveat, I do not do pie crust, and so that was store-bought. But today I'm going to teach you how I make apple pie. Before we begin, I would love to hear from you all in the comments below. Does your family go apple picking? What is that experience like for you? And what are the things that you like to make with the apples that you pick? We're going to be using two types of apples, Honeycrisp, and this is a Granny Smith apple. Sweet and kind of sour and tart. That combination together is going to add a lot of richness and flavor to your apple pie. Let's get started. But first, I have to put on my Boricua apron. Espérate un momentito. That's Spanish for just wait one moment. The recipe in detail written out is in the description of this video, but I wanted to go over what are the items we're gonna use in our recipe today. You're gonna get yourself 2 store-bought pie crusts. I take the shortcut. We're gonna use some lemon juice, a pinch of salt, some sugar. For those of you that have family members that are diabetic, you can still make this recipe. This tastes great, and it is the best I have found sugar substitute for baking, specifically for people that are diabetic. We're gonna use some flour, and as I mentioned earlier, some Granny Smith and Honeycrisp apples, a little bit of sweet and tart. And I am gonna actually use pumpkin pie spice, simply because, hey, it's fall, I love it, but it incorporates already cinnamon and nutmeg inside, which are the items that you use for a traditional apple pie. I usually start on one end and go as thin as possible. You can see from this apple that it is pretty thin. So I have preheated my oven to 425. My pie crust that comes store-bought, it is frozen, so you have to make sure that it defrosts. We're gonna put in our sugar, take our flour, and then here are our spices. I've got some pumpkin pie spice. This has a little bit of everything that reminds me of the fall. It is warm, like cinnamon and nutmeg and cloves and ginger. So if that is not your jam, it's okay. You can make this really simple and just have it be about the cinnamon and just put a tablespoon of cinnamon. I've added to this pumpkin pie spice a little bit more cinnamon, a teaspoon, and then of course our salt. We're gonna give it a whisk. The reason why I like to whisk this separately and not just throw it in the bowl with all the apples is because I feel like all of these ingredients will be blended together, and once you fold in your apples, then everything is even. You don't have a piece of apple that has a clump of flour or a clump of sugar or a clump of spices. It's just all evenly distributed. So I'm gonna take a tablespoon of lemon juice and I'm gonna pour it over my apples. Then I'm gonna give it a little toss. Now remember that mixture of spices and the flour and the sugar? We are going to go ahead and pour that over this and just fold it in. Another batch. And what's brilliant about this is that as the pie is baking, the apples are going to shrink a little bit. They're going to release their sweet juices and they're going to mix in with this flour, and it's going to create a little bit of a thick sauce. Not too thick. It's the thing of apple pie that is just so delicious. I wish you were here to smell this. There's just this smell of autumn and fall and cinnamon and nutmeg and ginger and cloves, and it just makes me think, oh my God, this pie va a quedar rico. That's Spanish, that this pie is gonna be delicious. And this is what you end up with. You can get real creative with this. You can add walnuts in there. I can't because my daughter's allergic. You can add raisins in here. I mean, la cocina es tuya. That's Spanish for that the kitchen is yours. You can do whatever makes you happy and that you know your family and your loved ones are gonna love. So we have a little bit of breakage, but that's fine. That's happened to me before. You know what? I've changed my mind. We're going to make a little adjustment. Okay, guys, we're not going to use this pan. So we're going to make a last minute adjustment because as I'm doing this, look it's not even covering, and this is really a flaky crust. So I am going to go ahead and make the adjustment of just putting the pie filling directly into here, which is fine. It came prepared for that already. I wanted to put it in my own pie pan, but this is the way cooking and baking goes. You make adjustments along the way and you get to see that real time. We're gonna go ahead and put our pie filling inside. Now let's go ahead and take that pie crust and lay it over. And it is actually okay that there are some cracks here, but you want there to be some slits that are open as it's boiling on the inside to go ahead and release that air. So it's gonna look kind of funky on the top, and that's okay because you know what? Sometimes las cosas feitas salen bien rico también. And again, that's just to allow it to, as it's boiling on the inside, all those liquids are gonna start to boil and it'll release that air through these slits. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the oven for about 40 to 45 minutes or until this is golden brown. The reason why I don't put this in the oven by itself and I have it on top of this sheet is because while this is baking, it'll bubble over. Some of those amazing juices will bubble over and thicken up. And the last thing you want is to create a mess inside your oven of spillage. So I want to have a little heart-to-heart with my people. If you are Puerto Rican, you understand that in our community, the rates of diabetes is really high. And so this is why I wanted to incorporate within this recipe just the mention of using Swerve as an option to substitute out the sugar that this recipe calls for. Now, Swerve, I've tried various different types of baking sugar substitutes, and this by far is my favorite. I used this when I was trying the keto diet, and so it is keto compliant, but I don't know if with the apples and the other things that's in this recipe, I don't think it's keto compliant. But regardless, for the sake of health and if you have a relative that has diabetes, I would highly recommend using Swerve in your baking recipes. If this is something that you're interested in using, use it and check the conversion chart online. Okay, y'all, so the apple pie has come out of the oven. It has cooled off. I told you it's important to put these things inside of a pan so that way spillage doesn't burn the inside of your oven. Here we go. I'm gonna give it a taste test. Here we have our homemade apple pie, super simple in my opinion. I topped it off with some homemade whipped cream, and here we go. Bon appetit. I just love combining the sweet with the tart apples. It's so good. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel just yet, where we talk about food, familia, and finds, all with a Puerto Rican lens. I'm gonna finish eating this up. I'll see you at the next video. Bye. This one is, ¿cómo se llama esto? I was gonna say potatoes. Of the actual, whoop, se me cayó. Okay, that's not going in the pie. Let's try to do that one more time.